I lived in the house where I grew up, but no one spoke to me anymore. They planned their future like I wasn't sitting right there. They never expected the lawyer to say my name first. My name is Chloe. I wasn't the loud one. I wasn't the problem child. I was the daughter who learned early that love in my family came with conditions. I followed every rule. I stayed quiet. I carried my own weight. And somehow that made me invisible. This is the story of how my family treated me like a stranger in my own home, and how the truth finally forced them to see me. The first time I noticed it, I almost convinced myself it meant nothing. I came home late from work, my shoulders aching, my head buzzing from a long shift. I set my keys in the bowl by the door and said, "Hey, I'm home." No one answered. My mom and my younger brother were at the kitchen table. Papers were spread everywhere, bank envelopes, a laptop, handwritten notes. They were deep in conversation, leaning toward each other like I wasn't standing 10 feet away. I waited. Nothing. I poured myself a glass of water and sat down slowly, watching them talk over me. "Jason needs stability," my mom said. "I know," he replied. "Dad said we should move the money soon." Money. That word always meant I wasn't included. I cleared my throat. "What's going on?" My mom finally looked up, blinking like she'd forgotten I existed. "Oh," she said, "you're home." Not welcome home, not how was your day, just surprise. From that day on, it kept happening. Decisions were made without me. Plans were announced after the fact. Conversations stopped when I entered the room or continued like I wasn't there. I told myself I was being sensitive, until the letter arrived. It was addressed to the Carter family. My name wasn't listed. I picked it up, opened it, and read the first line. Refinancing approval confirmed. My hands shook as I brought it to my dad. "Oh, that?" he said casually. "It's nothing important." "Why didn't anyone tell me?" I asked. He didn't even look guilty. "It doesn't concern you, Chloe." I lived there, I paid bills there, I helped when money was tight, but somehow I didn't count. Jason never tried to hide it. When I asked why he got help and I didn't, he smirked. "You're strong," he said. "They don't worry about you." Strong. That word was their excuse for everything. The final moment came at dinner. "We need to talk," my mom said brightly. Jason was moving back home. Everyone smiled, everyone celebrated. Then she looked at me. "We'll need your room," she said. "Jason needs more space." My chest tightened. "My room?" I asked. "You can use the guest room," she replied, already done with the conversation. 16 years in that room. Gone. I nodded, because that's what I'd been trained to do. That night, lying in a bed that didn't feel like mine, I finally admitted the truth. I wasn't their daughter anymore. I was just someone living under their roof, and they had no idea what they were about to lose.
Jason didn't even pretend to feel bad. That's what hurt the most. He moved back into the house like it was always his. Boxes stacked in the hallway, his shoes by the door, his laughter filling rooms that had gone quiet for me months ago. And suddenly, everything revolved around him. Again. My parents woke early to make him breakfast. They asked about his plans, his stress, his future. They worry about his confidence, his next step. No one asked how I was doing. No one noticed when I started coming home later, eating alone, disappearing into the guest room like a shadow. I was useful only when something needed to be done. One night, I overheard them talking in the living room. I hadn't meant to listen. I was just passing by when I heard my name. "Chloe won't need any of it," my mom said. I stopped walking. "She's always managed on her own," my dad replied. "Jason needs support." Needs. That word again. My heart started pounding as I stood there, frozen. "The savings should go to him," my mom continued. It makes more sense. I stepped into the room. What savings? I asked. They both looked startled, like they'd been caught doing something wrong. My dad recovered first. Adult conversations, he said. You don't need to worry. I live here. I help pay bills. If there's money... Jason laughed from the couch. Oh, come on, Chloe, he said. Why do you always make things about you? That sentence landed harder than anything else. I looked at my parents. They didn't correct him. They didn't defend me. They just waited for me to back down. And I did, because I always did. A week later, I found out they'd co-signed a loan for Jason. Not from them, from the bank. I was at work when the teller casually asked, "Are you aware of the recent account changes?" My stomach dropped. What changes? I asked. She hesitated. The withdrawal and transfer to your brother's account. My brother. The money came from an account I'd been contributing to since I was 19. I drove home shaking. When I confronted them, my mom sighed like I was exhausting her. Jason needed it, she said. What about me? I asked quietly. She looked confused. You're fine, she replied. That was the moment something inside me cracked. Not loudly, cleanly. Jason didn't thank me. He bought a new car. My parents admired it in the driveway, proud smiles on their faces. I watched from the window, invisible, again. That night, I opened a folder I hadn't touched in years. Old paperwork, birth records, notes my grandmother had once insisted I keep. I didn't know why I looked at them. Not yet, but something in my gut told me this story wasn't as simple as they thought. And for the first time, I stopped trying to earn my place in the family. I started paying attention instead.
I didn't go looking for the truth. That's the part people never believe. They think I planned it, that I was sneaky or desperate or waiting for the right moment to dig into their secrets. I wasn't. The truth came to me the same way everything else in that house did, quietly, accidentally, and a little too late. It started with the mailbox. One envelope, thick, official, cream-colored with a return address from a law office I didn't recognize. It was addressed to my father. I carried it inside and placed it on the counter with the rest of the mail. That's when my mom saw it. She froze, just for a second, but I noticed. That's not for you, she said quickly. I know, it came with the others. She snatched it off the counter like it burned her fingers. That's when I knew. That night I couldn't sleep, not because I was angry, because something felt off in a way I couldn't explain. I lay awake in the guest room, staring at the ceiling, replaying years of moments that suddenly didn't sit right anymore. Why I was always told to be independent. Why no one ever discussed finances with me. Why my grandmother had insisted I keep certain documents. At 3 a.m, I got up. I went to the hallway closet, the one my mom thought I'd forgotten about. Inside, behind old coats and boxes of holiday decorations, was a small metal file box. I knew exactly where the key was. I always had. My grandmother had shown me once, years ago, her voice firm in a way I didn't understand at the time. Don't lose these, she'd said, and don't let anyone tell you they don't matter. My hands shook as I opened the box. I wasn't expecting what I found. Property records, trust documents, letters with my name on them. My name, not my parents', not Jason's, mine. I sat on the floor and read everything twice, then a third time. Then I started crying, not because I was relieved, because I was furious. The house, the savings, the accounts, they weren't just family assets. They were connected to something my grandmother had set aside specifically for me, a trust, established years ago, with conditions. Conditions that required transparency, consent, my consent, and it had never been given. The realization hit me like a punch to the chest. They weren't just favoring Jason, they were actively removing me from decisions that legally involved me. They weren't protecting him,
They were stealing from me. The next morning, I watched them like strangers. Every smile felt fake, every kind word rehearsed. I noticed how my mom avoided my eyes, how my dad suddenly kept his office door locked, how Jason strutted around like nothing could touch him. They thought I was still in the dark. They were wrong. I didn't confront them, not yet. I copied the documents instead, photographed everything, saved it in 3 places, because my grandmother had raised me better than to act before I was ready. A few days later, my dad announced a family meeting. Jason grinned like he'd already won. "We're finalizing some paperwork," he said. "Just routine." I sat quietly, my heart pounding. My mom spoke fast, too fast. "It's just formalities," she said. "Nothing you need to worry about, Chloe." I looked at her, straight in the eyes. "I already am," I replied. The room went silent. Jason laughed nervously. "You're being dramatic." I didn't argue. I just asked one question. Why does my name appear on legal documents I was never shown? No one answered. That's when fear finally appeared on my parents' faces. Real fear. The kind that tells you you've stepped somewhere you weren't supposed to. That night I made a decision. I wouldn't yell, I wouldn't beg, I wouldn't expose them myself. I would let the law speak, and the law was very clear.
The lawyer's office was colder than I expected. Not the temperature, the feeling. The kind of place where words didn't bend for emotions and excuses didn't survive. Leather chairs, white walls, a ticking clock that felt louder every second. My parents sat beside me. Jason sat across from us, confident, relaxed, already acting like the future belonged to him. They still thought this meeting was for him. They were wrong. Mr. Reynolds adjusted his glasses and opened a thick folder. "I'll keep this simple," he said. My father nodded. "We appreciate that." The lawyer didn't look at him. He looked at me. "Chloe," he said clearly, "thank you for coming." My mother stiffened. Jason frowned. My name wasn't supposed to be first. Mr. Reynolds flipped a page. "This meeting concerns the estate and trust established by your grandmother, specifically the portion designated for Chloe." Silence. My mom's hand gripped her purse. Jason laughed nervously. "There must be a mistake." "There isn't," the lawyer replied. He slid the document across the table. "Chloe is the primary beneficiary. The house, the savings accounts, and the investment fund were legally placed under her name once she turned 21. My father stood up abruptly. "That's not possible." Mr. Reynolds didn't blink. "It's already done." My mother's voice shook. "We were protecting her." The lawyer looked up. "By hiding it from her?" No answer. Jason turned to me, anger flashing in his eyes. You knew all this time." I met his gaze calmly. "You never asked," I said. Mr. Reynolds continued. "Any transfers made without Chloe's consent are invalid. That includes the loan, the refinancing, and the withdrawals." My father's face went pale. Jason's jaw dropped. My mother started crying. Too late. "So what happens now?" Jason demanded. The lawyer closed the folder. "Everything reverts back to Chloe, effective immediately." The room collapsed into silence. Years of favoritism, years of silence, years of treating me like a stranger, ended with one sentence. We left the office separately. No one spoke. At the house, my parents stood in the living room like guests, not owners, guests. My father finally spoke. "You could have warned us." I shook my head. "You never warned me." I packed my things that night, not because I was running, because I didn't belong there anymore. The house was legally mine, but emotionally I was already gone. At the door, my mother whispered, "What are we supposed to do now?" I paused. The answer came easily. "The same thing I did," I said. "Figure it out on your own." I didn't feel joy. I felt relief. They treated me like a stranger at home, until the lawyer spoke, and for the first time in my life, I walked away with my name, my truth, and my future intact. The end.